Howdy, everyone. Thanks for joining. We will give folks just a minute to trickle in before we kick things off. In the meantime, sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, depending on what time of day it is, no judgment. We will get started in just a bit. Hey, Vitaly, how's the weather where you are?
Hey, Sam, it's good. Good. How are you?
It's good. It's a little sunny here in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. What time is it where you're located?
Well, it's 9 p.m. I'm not that far away, just in the middle of Atlantic Ocean, but should be good.
Wow, yeah, definitely a different climate than maybe what most of our audience is located in. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll give it a few more seconds before we dive in.
Happy to see a number of participants are growing.
I know, I love to see it. All
Yeah.
right, well, it is 1:01 Pacific time, so we will get started. Hello, and welcome everyone to our webinar on mobile growth in the year 2022. I hope you're all having a great summer so far. I hope that it's not going by too quickly. We do have an amazing roster of content to share with you all, specifically on updates in the mobile growth space. Also, this is the ideal opportunity for you, our audience, to ask questions that will be answered live during our Q&A portion. By the end of the hour, you should be able to take away some valuable nuggets of information to help arm you with your marketing campaigns. And hopefully, we hope that you feel more prepared for what's to come with the rest of the year and what 2022 has in store for all of us. So with that being said, let's dive into some introductions. My name's Sam, and I'm here on the product marketing team here at Branch. I've spent the better part of the last decade working in tech, starting from artificial intelligence to analytics, and now mobile attribution and deep linking here at Branch. Joining me, I have my co-host Vitaly, CEO of Adapty. I will let him introduce himself. Vitaly, let's hear from you.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. So I'm Vitaly, co-founder and CEO of Adapty. So we're building a SaaS for mobile applications with in-app subscriptions to help them build profitable business. And I'm super excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Vitaly. And now on to some housekeeping items. For folks now joining us, we'll be running through some housekeeping items before you kick things off. Don't worry, first, if you're munching on any snacks or if you just got out of the shower, the audience is muted and nobody can see you, so you're safe to sit back and relax. We're also recording this webinar, so if you need to drop off, you can always pick right back up where you left off. Also, we'll be sharing the recording out to everyone who registered, so you're welcome to share that out to any friends if you find something cool and insightful from today's event. And lastly, we are strongly encouraging audience participation. So if you have any comments, feel free to share those in the Zoom chat. And if you have any questions, share those in the Zoom Q&A feature. That means we are out of the way with housekeeping. Let's go ahead and talk about why we're all here. First, we'll walk through the recent WWDC and in-app purchase updates from earlier this year. Then we'll have a really thought-provoking discussion in our Q&A portion to talk about how you can navigate industry changes successfully in marketing. So all of those burning questions you may have will be answered live. This is going to be a good one. Let's dive in, y'all. First, I will kick things off with a WWDC update. So just for context for those on the call, after Apple wrapped up their Worldwide Developers Conference earlier this year, we're going to be talking about how those changes will eventually impact us all here in the mobile world once iOS 16 is released later on. So to start, we're very committed to keeping customers informed about the latest industry changes before they happen. And Branch has a team of subject matter experts working on a proactive solution to the iOS 16 changes that await us later this year. As a heads up, we'll be talking quite a bit about Apple's WWDC and the changes they will implement with iOS 16. So let's talk about the impact that these changes could potentially have. But first, we'll also refresh our memories on the historical context of WWDC. In 2020, we got iOS 14, app tracking transparency, SCAN, and the beginning of the IDFA apocalypse. That was followed in the next year by iOS 15 with Private Relay and Hide My Email. Both years were hugely eventful. When Apple makes announcements like these, it's historically been disruptive to all of us here today in the weeds of mobile marketing. And that's because Apple's announcements literally move markets and impact the industry in a very unpredictable way. So it's worth reminding ourselves that the stakes are not small, and iOS 16 is no exception to that rule. And that brings us to present day, where so far reactions after this year's WWDC have been sighs of relief. That being said, the interesting developments were not in short supply this year. A good indication of what Apple considers important is what makes it into the main keynote at WWDC. So here's our scorecard results. First, Apple used the WWDC presentations to expand on the app tracking transparency policy details and compliance expectations. What they clarified comes down to 3 main points. First, tracking is not just about IDFA, it applies to all forms of advertising tracking. In fact, IDFA was only mentioned once in the whole session. So this was always clear in the policy, but the way that Apple describes it seems to have subtly shifted. Second, there are no separate but equal systems to scan. So Apple specifically ruled out workarounds based on processing user-level data, but only outputting aggregated reports. So in other words, you cannot create a separate but equal system to scan that works without user opting in. And lastly, fingerprinting is never okay. So this was addressed pretty head-on by Apple. It's just not allowed. While there are no explicit statements about how they're going to enforce this policy, it's not hard to see this as a final warning from Apple. So with that being said, let's quickly talk about the SKAdNetwork Network 4.0 improvements. Overall, this is a major improvement. It should make Scan a lot more usable for most apps. But what exactly are those improvements that are coming in version 4? First, we're going to have multiple conversions. So you can now get up to 3 postbacks sent at predetermined intervals. So this removes the need for complicated timer logic. Secondly, SKAdNetwork Network attributions for web are now supported, which will direct users to the app's App Store product page. Third, we have hierarchical source identifiers. That's a mouthful. Apple is replacing the campaign ID with a new parameter named source identifier, which is 100 times larger and intended to be more flexible than the campaign ID. So up to 4 digits are now supported depending on privacy thresholds. And lastly, hierarchical conversion values with the addition of coarse and fine-grained conversion value variants that have been added. So in my humble opinion, previous versions of Scan were somewhat over-engineered, such as the rolling timer, if you're familiar with that. And this new version reduces the system's complexity overall. So you may be wondering what that means, especially for the future. Basically, the overall trends from WWDC are pretty clear. First, device level data is going out of fashion in favor of aggregate reporting. So the macro trend here is that channel-specific practical metrics with new options for cross-channel visibility, like MMM, that's coming back into play. Inevitable tightening of restrictions around user-level IDs, such as cookies, device IDs, and workarounds like fingerprinting. Apple took a break from privacy-related drama this year, but that does not mean that they're walking away. So even if Apple doesn't move more aggressively into ATT enforcement, we believe that the best strategy for the future of measurement is to embrace this new world that will eventually come. So we don't recommend wasting time and energy trying to squeeze out a little bit more device-level data through workarounds that Apple will inevitably crack down on, whether it's this year or the next. And lastly, seek out other low-hanging fruit like ads, which are not going anywhere. Now is the time to look at other marketing channels and focus on plugging the leaks in your funnel instead of just pouring more cheap traffic into the top. We're seeing a general trend towards interest in other owned and organic channels, which have always been a good bet, but now they're getting the attention that they've always deserved. And this will require a different tool set, apart from your typical traditional MMP or mobile measurement platform. If you haven't considered investing in a mobile linking platform for your owned and earned channels, this is a great time to start. So with that in mind, your MMP is your ally. It's the best bet is to try to navigate these waters alone. It's not a good plan. In fact, it's more important than ever to have an MMP to handle this complexity, which is baked into measuring your ads, but it's somewhat less important exactly which MMP you pick. Obviously, we suggest branch, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hint. But lastly, If these updates are in any way concerning, don't despair. It's the big shifts like this that makes mobile such a dynamic space to work, and it's incredibly exciting. While navigating the ever-changing world of mobile marketing, you can consider both the Branch and Adaptee teams your partners in crime. But also choosing Branch is a great way to remove friction within the user experience while freeing up your resources to work on awesome app features. So you can rest assured that we will handle the changes happening this year and in the years beyond. Speaking of changes, aside from privacy and tracking news, there were plenty of other exciting goodies announced this year. I picked out a few that I felt would be interesting to anybody in the app marketing and product management space, basically anybody who cares about app growth. First is the collaboration API. This is a new thing that Apple is introducing for link sharing to enable live collaboration. Apple has had live collaboration features in their apps for some time now, but now they're expanding it and making it more integrated with a share sheet and a third-party API to integrate your own apps. This will allow for unique anonymized user IDs to protect privacy, but ultimately this feature will enable more direct collaboration than in the past. Next, the lock screen in iOS 16 has been entirely transformed by Apple. They've added on a new widget system that looks strikingly similar to the personalization options on Apple Watches. So with this redesign, notifications will no longer be as big of a nuisance to the user's daily routine. And that's again from more of a user perspective, not so much from a marketing standpoint. The best part is that multiple lock screens can be created and interchanged. This features animations, fluid transitions, and plenty of customization options. Users can choose from a variety of pre-made designs or create their own, and it gives users quick access to updated information from their favorite apps, hopefully it's one of yours, without even having to unlock their device. So this is some pretty cool stuff. Next, notifications are getting an update in iOS 16. I definitely am curious to know how this will shake up possibilities for those in marketing. In this new version of iOS, new notifications appear from the bottom of the screen, and the Live Activities API allows apps to update the lock screen with live event data rather than spamming users with notifications. So an example, you've probably interacted with a ride-sharing app that will bombard you with a stream of notifications about your driver's status. This notification will be a singular widget with real-time updates and will come out again later this year. I could see this reducing, obviously, the quantity of notifications, but it'll also drive an improvement in the quality and attention-grabbing aspect of notifications. And that's something to keep in mind for, again, those who are in marketing or product management who are here on this call to think about as you plan your marketing campaigns moving forward. Next, we have the idea of app intents. So this is to help users discover what apps can do outside of the app itself. So Spotlight will gain actions, including the ability to start or end a timer, and will surface content from even more built-in and third-party apps, including results from messages, notes, and files. Basically, this will flag what you can do within an app outside of the app itself. So if, for example, you were to want to submit an order on Amazon without app intents, you have to go to the Amazon app and search for an item. With app intents, Amazon will actually pop a hint at the bottom of the screen, and you can use Siri, for example, to order something outside of the app entirely. So again, very cool stuff, really interesting in the scheme of marketing for sure. Next, we have support for web push notifications coming to Safari. So it does require users to interact to trigger the prompt. It'll be interesting to see when these notifications come out, how it will impact us from a marketing perspective. Next, this one's going to be interesting, and I certainly hope you get some good questions on this one. Apple is making updates to Apple Pay. So two interesting areas to note. Essentially, Buy Now, Pay Later is going to split the cost of something you buy into Apple Pay with 4 payments. Another thing that they're also adding is the ability to track orders with notifications around shipping and delivery dates. Apple's entry into this market will extend marketers' potential customer base, especially with younger customers who will want the freedom to make a purchase and pay for it as they get their paychecks. So offering buy now, pay later can enhance conversion rates and increase average checkout size. So it's definitely something to keep in mind when building personalized marketing campaigns with targeted product IDs or SKUs. And lastly, Pasteboard access changes, certainly not least. This is a big update that will ultimately give more control back to the users with cross-app copy and pasting. So when users tap that button on the interface, it'll make the process of pasting a lot simpler. The user doesn't need to get the edit button working to copy and paste, but in addition, Apple is making a user permission prompt to confirm the user's intent to paste. So pasting via the edit options menu will not require a permissions prompt. There will be a default setup, but more to come on that later. And if you're curious to learn more, here is a branch QR code to a blog post that I wrote on other updates at WWDC. It takes everything we just talked about a little bit further. All you need to do is scan this QR code and it'll take you right to that blog post. But now I will pass the baton over to my co-host, Vitaly. I will stop sharing my screen and pass it over to you.
Good. Thanks, Sam. Just give me one more second. As usual, some tech issues. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Nope.
Now you should.
Yep, now I can.
Oh, good. All right. Thanks, Sam. So, hey, everyone. And I'll be taking us today all through in-app purchases, updates, and in-app subscriptions. So let's quickly dive in. So the first thing is I actually want to continue to talk a bit more about Pasteboard access topic and tell you a bit more about how it can affect marketers and buyers. So actually in iOS, Pasteboard is just more a clipboard manager. The first thing is that it's not really a safe thing because all applications, including Safari, can access your Pasteboard, which means applications and websites can write into it and can get information from it. And most of the time it is fine, but if you copy your SSN or credit card number, you don't really want a random application to get this data and do something with it. Luckily, starting iOS 14, you get a notification when the app is using your Pasteboard. But in iOS 16, we will see this explicit consent, which is a really good thing. Other thing is that we probably will see some impact on deferred deep linking. So I guess you're familiar because this is a branch event, what is a deep linking? So I don't tell about this. But if you use your own implementation on deferred deep linking, which means the application is not yet installed, it may break, but probably not. So it may affect in some way, but I hope, companies can adapt to this. And the most important thing is that currently Pasteboard Manager is being used to avoid tracking consent. And I knew about this around 2 months ago, that a lot of companies, they create a single page web application with only a single button to download application. Then they invite traffic to this web page and they copy the whole URL with UTM parameters to Pasteboard Manager. Then when a user installs the app, they paste it, parse UTM parameters, and thus avoid tracking consent. So this is not really a good thing. This breaks Apple rules, but it is where it is, and a lot of companies use it, which is not really a good thing. Of course, the adoption of this thing depends on the text. The text for tracking consent is really scary, and the consent we've seen on WWDC for Pasteboard Manager is something okay. So probably we'll see something like, I guess, more than 50% for adoption rate. So I believe it should be fine, but anyway. Next, I'm going to talk about API for both backend developers and front-end side. A really good thing, which I'm really happy, is that now App Store Connect has a subscription API and in general in-app purchases API, which is definitely a good thing for us. Although App Store Connect API exists for a really long time, and developer tools such as Fastlane, for example, have been using it for a long time for uploading builds, uploading images and app metadata. Now what you can do is you can use this subscription API to upload your metadata for purchases. So imagine you can just create a YAML config file or JSON config file, describe all you want to do, and you don't need to open App Store Connect, which is a bit slow sometimes. So you can all do this within your config file or Fastlane tool, a really good thing. And I believe we'll see much more developer tools and third-party interfaces to allow do this, which again, I really like it. And it will be soon available in our platform as well, probably later this fall. So you don't need to use App Store Connect anymore, almost. Talking more about the client side, this is a really technical thing, but it's called StoreKit Messages. So it's a new API for in-app messages screens for purchases. So now it works only for increasing subscription price. And let me give you an example. So what you can do is you can catch the subscription event, let's say for price increase in this particular example, and you can show the price increase screen just in the right time. So a good example here is if you have a fitness application and your user in the middle of workout and you planned a price increase, so your user must agree with this price increasing, you want to present it just in the right time. So you don't want to disturb your user, interact the experience. Maybe you want to catch some, good time and show when they're ready. So now you can do this. I believe we will see more things about this. So this is just the first step in a good default screen, native by Apple. But I think we will see more of these in the future for billing issues, for family sharing. So you will be able to do the right wording to explain to users why they should pay for your app. So again, a good thing. A bit more about StoreKit, which is a native framework for processing purchases. So what Apple does is they help developers, like all the things that they already have, especially the first thing called transaction API, which replaces receipts. And it helps cover some side cases of purchases, especially the one when you have a paid application and you want to switch to a freemium version within apps. So now you have a dedicated property. You don't need to do any backend stuff. So you just check a property inside the application, inside the StoreKit framework that the app was purchased already, and you can unlock the premium features. It works in a way just like lifetime subscriptions, I would say. So again, one less step to your infrastructure. Also, a price locale thing, which is kind of funny, I would say, because this is just a really, really simple stuff that just divides your annual price to 12. So like now if you want to show a user the adjusted price for your annual subscription, like what it costs per month, you don't need to divide the yearly subscription price by 12. And now Apple gives you a good property for this. So it is good, of course, less bugs, but not a big thing. But again, nice to have this. And the last big thing for both the developers and business side, I guess, which can be really useful, is a recent subscription start date. So this property helps you to understand how long a user has been paying to you right inside the application. Again, you don't need to support your backend for this. And so what you can do is you can check, hey, this user has been paying me 3 months or 100 days or so, and you can give them extra. So let's say in a case of workout in a fitness application, you can give the free workout or free session, something like that. Again, less backend, less coding, properties are available in native StoreKit. Very cool. Well, that's it from developer side, I guess, but we have two really important updates here. So the first one from government side from EU. So there's now legislation that has been approved by EU Parliament that will see third-party payments and third-party stores very soon in EU and EEA countries, which is just EU and 3 more countries. Good. Side loading also supported. And we already have cases for this in real life. So if you take Korea, South Korea for sure, it is already working. and you need to upload a dedicated bundle of your app, like a separate dedicated application to App Store Connect. You need to get a permit from Apple, and you must choose whether you want to use in-apps or third-party payments. And if you want to use third-party payments, then your user will see this screen, which is really a big problem. So it says you're about to leave this application, you go to unknown website that is not controlled by Apple, there are risks of fraud and scam, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of scary. And, unless this is a Netflix or a Spotify applications, I'm not sure that it will have a big adoption. But we will see. And, we have cases. We also have cases with reader applications. Like, again, Netflix is a good example here. Surprisingly, Google also takes steps here and a couple steps ahead of Apple as usual. So if you use Android and sell in apps in Android, you can use third-party payments in EU, in EEA countries. But these third-party payment systems must be authorized by Google. So that means you can't use a random payment provider. And again, you have to pay a cut to Google, this time 3% less. So instead of paying 15, you pay 12. Instead of paying 30, you pay 27. And you'll pay the rest 3% to a payment provider. Again, probably not a big deal, but you will force users to enter credit card details or PayPal details. I don't know, but looks much harder than just confirming your purchase with Face or Touch ID, right? It works only for games, and you still, again, have to offer Google Play billing as an alternative. And I personally believe, we probably won't see a huge adoption of third-party payments in mobile, maybe for this year at least, but it depends. So platforms are fighting. This is a big thing, so they won't give up easily. So, the cut is big. Security is also huge. So yeah, probably we'll see something good, but we'll see. That's it on my side. I guess I'm passing to Sam, and we have a Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Vitaly. I am sure we've got lots of folks curious about not only Apple, but Google's plans as well. I'm going to officially open it up for questions and hopefully answers from Vitaly and I. If anyone has any questions about features that we've discussed, or maybe features we haven't discussed, now is your chance to ask about anything that we've covered up until this point, and we will do our best to answer. It looks like we've already got a couple in here, so I'm going to go ahead and start taking them off one by one, and I'll pass any to you that are relevant. The first one is, when is iOS 16 going to be released? That is a great question. It is very easy to answer. It's currently already available, technically speaking, in beta to developers that are registered with Apple's developer program. But I believe it's starting July 11th. There will be a public beta, and then sometime later this fall is when it's supposed to be in GA or some sort of public version of it. So that is a great question. I certainly would love to know myself, but as much information as we know at this time. Definitely a great
I think we can extend it a little bit more. The really big question is here when it will get a big adoption. So, all right, we definitely know it will be released in September, right? But how fast you will see all of these changes affected to all your apps and all your users. And the really interesting thing is that you have a really fast adoption of new iOS versions. So if it is released in late September, probably in 1-2 months, you'll have like 80-90% of adoption rate, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Unlike Android.
I know it's a big guessing game.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how folks respond to it. But yeah, I definitely agree. The adoption is the bigger question for sure. All right, next question. We've got One for you, Vitaly, is the new scan a big deal for app marketers? I feel like this is a loaded question. Do you want to take the first stab at that?
I can give it a try. I think it's really a big deal, especially for ad networks and for app marketers, because looks like the law is breaking really slowly, but you get a much more information comparing to scan 3.0 and comparing to 2.0, so just getting more and more information. So what I think is that you will have a better targeting for sure, better granularity, better analytics, but you won't see any you won't see any user level attribution, that's for sure. But I guess attribution should be better, and acquisition as well.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I will expand on that and say that I think Scan 4.0 will ultimately at least the one major pain point is that we didn't get enough signals collected about what users were doing post install. So I feel like we're just going to be getting a lot more context and information, and that is one of my biggest gripes about previous versions, is that there wasn't enough time or context. But I think just in case it wasn't already clear, the improvement is that there are no more looping timers. So this is a welcome development because looping timers were confusing and difficult to work with. That is a big improvement. And just for posterity's sake, I think we at Branch are definitely planning to support this. However, we don't know when Scan 4 will launch, other than the estimation that we were given by Apple, which is later this year. So it's not predicted to be bundled with iOS 16. We only know that it will only apply to iOS 16, meaning multiple versions of Scan will exist for a while.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
also something to note. That's a very complex question, but hopefully we answered that one for you as best as we could. Definitely some good things here. We've got another one here. What do you think the impact of Apple's changes on marketing as an industry will be? That's a great question. Let me mark that one as answered live. It's hard to say exactly how this year's announcements will impact how marketers interact with consumers on mobile devices, but it is apparent, at least to me, that Apple plans to minimize the data that apps need to function and to offer that greater transparency into how apps are using said data. So one thing that I will call out is that I predict it'll be a new territory for us all to navigate. Brands used to get really excited when customers would download our apps. And then again, when customers opt in for push notifications. The iOS 16 update offers personalized lock screens for different focus modes. And these act like a do not disturb setting for apps. So now these features may create a little bit more of a headache for marketers who send opt-in notifications to iPhone users. Now it's inconvenient to have to unlock an iPhone or to click on a notification every time that they receive a notification. So brands will actually have to find ways to make their content more accessible from the home or the lock screen. So that's something that I think will be a pretty big impact based on everything that we've learned so far. But that being said, I do think that this year's announcements are a little bit defined by what didn't happen or what changes won't occur, at least not yet. The reason I say that is a worst case scenario would be that Apple would essentially force everybody to have private relay set as default. This is a feature that allows premium iCloud users to hide their IP addresses. This is technically available, but it's not really enforced. But such a move would further harm the digital marketing industry on the whole. That in mind, it's important to not be complacent when it comes to user privacy, even if we believe that Apple's privacy crackdown has been tempered by government competitor regulators. It is important to know that Apple could at any point enforce private relay, and that would be Armageddon for sure. So definitely something that we need to be very, very mindful of.
Yeah, they also can introduce privacy related to applications. So like all SDKs and all APIs from all applications will be go through Apple's VPN services. And this is a big thing. And I also can add here a little bit from the previous question is that the market is still growing. As though, although we've seen scan, which were like destruction for a lot of people, but actually the market is growing like 10% year over year or something like that. So people are making more and more purchases in games and apps. So it's a good sign.
Yeah, I think people are making more purchases probably due to that, and also due to the fact that the economy is, at least in the States, is in an interesting place, and physically spending money at brick and mortar stores has gone down. If you look at the recent news on Target, which is a big box store here in the States, they are plummeting as far as revenue sales go, but we are looking at some pretty increasing spikes in mobile spend. Mobile spend is actually not affected too much. So that's
Mhm.
it's an interesting implication. We've got another question here, and this one might be more in line with what our theme is here. What is the future of Safari push notifications for iOS? Do you know of any limitations? I'm happy to answer this one, but did you want to take the first stab at this, Vitaly?
Uh, it's a good question, to be honest. Like, I think, again, it's kind of scary thing because I personally don't use notifications in my Chrome and in my desktop Safari at all. So I turn off all notifications so none of website can send me this notification. Again, it depends on adoption rate, but it's definitely a good thing for third-party services for push notifications. We will see some good websites to send notifications via Safari. A good thing. Depends on how rich they can be. If it's just a notification, that's okay. But I think a really cool thing about native iOS notifications is that they are rich. So you can type messages, let's say if this is a messenger application, or you can choose a reaction or something like that. So probably for a geeky audience, we'll see a really low adoption rate, like 1% or so. But I guess for most people, it will be okay. So, like,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think specifically, well, one, I agree with you. I do have my notifications turned off on my personal devices. So that's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it'll impact me personally, but on the broader scale, I think speaking about Safari, this web browser will actually support web push notifications, extension syncing, and more with this update. So I think one of the biggest complaints about the current version of iOS with Safari is that it lacks push notifications for web apps. So websites are actually unable to notify a user if they're running Safari in the background, although this is already possible on the Mac.
Mhm.
With iOS 16, this will become a reality. So the first signs of push notifications for web apps appeared with iOS 15.4, but the feature never worked because it was labeled experimental. So technically it's already been out, but not fully out. And now, according to Apple, iOS 16 and iPadOS 16 will finally enable web push notifications, but the catch is that it'll come in 2023. So it won't be available
Mm.
at launch. So at least the company itself has confirmed that they're working on web push notifications. I think we just gotta wait a little bit, and that's at least my response to what the future of Safari push notifications is that it's in the future. It's in the year 2023. But limitations, I think, yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see what the results of those are. All right, next question. Does the new pasteboard prompt mean that every user prompt is going to look generic or the same? This is definitely an interesting question. One, because we don't want that. And two, I don't think so, but suffice to say, Apple has made several privacy-centric changes that have shifted the mobile attribution paradigm. And as a reminder for folks on the call, with the introduction of iOS 16, anytime the pasteboard is accessed for content from another app, the operating system will present a default user prompt. However, to answer the question, no, this prompt does not have to be the standard user experience. So yay, party emoji. Even though iOS 16's pasteboard permission feature can impact the user experience, it actually completes the circle of transparency to the end user. And something that I will call out as a Branch plug here is that with Branch Native Link, you can actually customize via our SDK, you can customize that prompt. So this call to action, this button can be customized to some extent with the stipulation that it has to say paste and or display the paste icon on the call to action itself. So that's pretty much the only two requirements, or one. But when iOS 16 is released, folks here in the app marketing space will have a few options for how existing pasteboard flows in your app will be handled. The options are to utilize Branch's SDK native link feature, but you can also implement the UI paste control framework manually, which does not sound fun, or you can allow the native default Apple prompt to display. So obviously we recommend you go the Branch route. This is great news for customers who are already using Native Link or who are already using Branch, but you do have those second and third options of going the Apple route as well. Vitaly, do you have anything to add or any other thoughts on that one?
You know, I was starting to thinking that as an app developer, why you actually need to paste something, like for good reason. I mean, I understand if you do like a post tracking application, right? Then this is a good use case where you want to automatically paste something from pasteboard, but well, again, I think it's a good thing. Like I would say the first thing I think is that we want this text will be default everywhere, so it won't be customizable. This is what I think, but I'm not sure. Again, I haven't read these API docs, and I think it's not really a big problem. You know, even for most applications, you don't need to paste something, as far as I can imagine. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the only times that I need to paste something, Apple kind of does it automatically for me, which is the validation code when I forget my password.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, outside of the standard, deep linking use cases, I don't really see much in the way of that being an issue. So, but yeah. Side note, whoever at Apple came up with the feature that just copies the verification code from your text messages and automatically pulls it up, that person needs a raise, because that is probably one of the better features that they've released in the past few years. All right, we've got a question from Yulia. Can you expand a little bit on the use cases for the collaboration API? That is interesting. I will say, to preface that, at least my first stab at this is it's not going to be great from a user tracking perspective, because it will rely on anonymized user IDs to protect privacy. So that does limit the use cases for its application. And to also a caveat to add is that Apple has had collaboration features in their products for quite some time. So this isn't new. I think this is really for link sharing. And I think from a deep linking standpoint, this could be a really cool application or a really cool use case. Now, what that looks like, I'm yet to see. I haven't seen the API itself, but those are some of the things that come to mind with this question. Is there anything else that comes to your mind, Vitaly?
I think I kind of align here with you. I don't know a lot about this collab API, to be honest, but I think it should be something close to continuity features that Apple presented. This feature when you now can finally transfer from FaceTime call on the phone to Mac or iPad is a really good thing. Maybe it's close to this, like unified experience. I know the fair answer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this impacts folks in product management and in app marketing, because I think this is going to in some way impact app growth. I just don't know how yet, and it'll be really interesting to see when this launches. But that is actually it for the questions that we have. For folks who are still on the line, we do have a little bit of more time left. If you would like to ask any last minute questions, Vitaly and I are here to answer those live. But otherwise, should we not get any more questions, we are happy to give you some time back and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, whatever time it may be, wherever you're located. It looks like we don't have any more questions, so I think we can go Vitaly to the next slide if you'd like. For folks on the line, if you enjoyed this time, please feel free to share that feedback to webinars@branch.io. Fun fact, we did record this webinar, so you will get a link to this webinar in your inbox by tomorrow. I don't know what time, but it'll be in there, and you can always share it with your colleagues, with your friends. Definitely keep an eye on our webinars moving forward. We, of course, love to partner with folks like Vitaly and the Adaptee team, so we may or may not do some more collaboration in the future. But that being said, I think we can go ahead and wrap things up. I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining. Let's stay in touch. Here is Vitaly's LinkedIn and Twitter. You can scan his QR code. You can also scan my QR code.
Or can do both.
Or you can do both. Kind of either or here. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We will give you back some time in your day.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and have a great day or evening or whatever you have.
Morning.
Or morning.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.